Tifu by using parchment paper instead of aluminium foil. For some context, I moved into student accommodation about a month ago. My shared kitchen has a fan oven with multiple different settings, while I am used to using a gas oven where all you really control is the temperature. I didn't really know what all of the separate settings do, so I just turn on any that heats up the oven and works for what I'm making. I decided to try and bake some apples with sugar and cinnamon, and the recipe said that it must be covered in tinfoil while it's baking. I didn't have any, but I had parchment paper, so I figured that must be fine, and I didn't want to go out and buy tinfoil. The nearest shop is 20 minutes away and I didn't really have the time, plus I just couldn't be bothered. Parchment paper is usually very safe to use in the oven as well, and at home there was zero risk, and that's what I was used to, so I didn't really think too much about it. It went swimmingly for most of the time the apples were in the oven, until I opened the oven and slightly adjusted the parchment paper to better observe the state of the apples, when all of a sudden it caught on fire. At that point I was just confused and scared. I wasn't aware it was possible to start a fire in the oven with parchment paper, and naturally there was a risk the fire would spread. One of my two flatmates who was there at the time started pouring water into the baking tray, and the other flatmate went to open windows and doors while I took the tray out of the oven and ran it under the water to put out the flames. All I was left with were some apples with a goopy, undercooked topping, surrounded by the charred remains of the parchment paper. It turned out that I had turned on the fan and grill setting, and the parchment paper must have touched the grill above, which then started the fire. So yeah, I won't try baking again anytime soon. TLDR, I turned on the fan and grill setting due to being unfamiliar with fan ovens, covered what I was baking in parchment paper. The parchment paper touched the grill and set on fire.